It began as any other evening, then this. The tsunami struck Indonesia on Saturday night, hitting beaches including popular tourist spots along the Sunda Strait, the channel between the islands of Java and Sumatra. The pop group 17 were performing when the wave engulfed their stage. Their singer confirmed on social media that the band's bass player and tour manager had died, and others, including his wife, were missing. Officials say the death toll is likely to continue to rise.
We hope that there will be another survivors, or we will, find survivors. But I don't know. Maybe we will have find the casualty or dead bodies. Yes, we are afraid that the casualty or dead bodies will be, increased.
Hundreds more were injured in the disaster, which authorities say may have been caused by underwater landslides following an eruption by the nearby Krakatoa volcano.
Earlier in the evening it was quite a heavy eruptive activity, but just prior to the wave hitting the beach, there was no activity at all. It was just dark out there, and suddenly I saw this wave coming and I just had to run. A second wave hit and it was quite much bigger.
Streets have now turned to mud and hundreds of buildings are seriously damaged.
The water came in and about 5 meters high, and many cars were flown and hit our villas.
The country's disaster management agency says high seas from a full moon could have contributed to the strength of the waves. Indonesia is prone to earthquakes and tsunamis because it straddles the so-called Pacific Ring of Fire, where tectonic plates collide. This latest disaster will bring back memories of the Boxing Day tsunami 14 years ago, which killed more than 225,000 people. Caroline News.
Well, our Indonesia editor, Rebecca Henschke, is in the coastal town of Anyer, where people are gathering what they can from the rubble.
We're in Anyer, and here behind me are some quite substantial houses that were also reduced in part to rubble by the waves. Some recovery efforts taking place, the clearing away of that rubble so that some of the slow rebuilding process can begin. Electricity is down here. This is the electrical wire, so there's no power to these communities, no running water. So people have been taking what they can from the rubble to kind of get through the next few days over Christmas that will be very tough. People's clothes and possessions from these holiday villas on the ground. Over here, and it gives you a sense of the power of the waves, these houses have been smashed into by cars that the community here says were parked on the other side of the road, and they're now been smashed into what is here, so smashed into what was a holiday villa full at this time of year.
Rebecca Henschke there at the scene in Indonesia. Well, I've been talking to Aulia Adriani, who's from the Indonesian Red Cross in the capital, Jakarta, and she told me that many people in the affected area are too afraid to return to what is left of their homes.
It was a powerful waves with heights of 30 to 90, 70 meters, caused deaths, injuries, and extensive damage on both sides of the strait. So right now, a lot of people are still staying in the shelter, and also some of them evacuate to their families up on the hill. They are still frightened. They are still afraid to come back to their houses because they are still afraid if there are any big wave and also tsunami is coming back again.
And what are your teams on the ground able to do to help those people?
Yes, so our volunteers already on the ground, on the field since last night. They are helping to do the evacuation, trying to find some survivors or maybe some casualty or dead bodies. And they are still working with the search and rescue team. And also our volunteers working to give the health assistance in the shelter in Lampung. For example, they are working together with the health team, giving the first aid to the community that now still live or staying in the governor office there, and we also dispatched some reliefs like blankets and drinking water and also tarpaulins.
What was the area prepared for this? Because of course there have been tsunamis before in Indonesia, so do you think people there almost expect this kind of thing to happen?
I don't think people last night know that this will happen. As you know, the tsunami strike is very sudden, and a lot of people were there on the tourist area because it's going to, it's Christmas time and also the New Year's, so a lot of people already on a holiday. They probably staying up there for 4 days, and they didn't know anything about it. We know that the Indonesian is a very, a lot of disaster happened in Indonesia, but I don't think the people knew that last night it was going to, tsunami will hit them.
And do you think the death toll, are you worried that the death toll, which is about 168 at the moment, that will rise? Because, previous experience of these kinds of disasters suggests that that often is the case.
Yeah, so our challenge with the tsunami disaster is we have the report on 30 people or probably more still missing, and we hope that there will be another survivors, or we will find survivors, but I don't know, maybe we will have find the casualty or dead bodies. Yes, we are afraid that the casualty or dead bodies will be increased.
Aulia Ariani there of the Indonesian Red Cross. I was speaking to her a little bit earlier on. The death toll has now risen to 220. Now here, friends and colleagues have been remembering the former leader of the Liberal Democrats, Lord Ashdown, who has died at the age of 77. Just months after revealing that he was being treated for bladder cancer. He led the Lib Dems for more than a decade, from 1988 to 99, and he's credited with making the party a significant third force in British politics. Vicky Young looks back at his life.
This is how most people will remember Paddy Action Man, the party leader with the least affection for Westminster. Long before he fired his first political salvos, he was a military man. A Marine, he saw active service in Borneo and Malaya. After a period as a diplomat and some time on the dole, Paddy Ashdown got involved with the Liberals, elected MP for Yeovil in 1983. Later, in 1988, after the painful merger with the SDP that formed the Liberal Democrats, he became leader.
I say to the millions out there who are concerned about poverty and about unemployment, come and join us.
The party was at rock bottom in the polls and financially crippled. Paddy Ashdown built it up again, but at some cost to his home life. He admitted an affair with his former secretary, Tricia Howard.
What Paddy said stands. He's made a statement already, and I was perfectly well aware of what he was going to say.
Fears that his party's poll rating would suffer were unfounded, and in 1997 he guided it to its greatest election achievement since the 20s, doubling the number of Lib Dem MPs.
Charles Kennedy is duly elected.
Paddy Ashdown resigned the leadership in 1999, handing the baton on to Charles Kennedy and retiring from the House of Commons 2 years later. He spent time in Bosnia at some personal risk at the height of the war there. And in 2002 became the High Representative in Bosnia and Herzegovina. But he wasn't done with Westminster politics. In 2015, after the Lib Dems had spent 5 years in coalition with the Conservatives, Lord Ashdown returned to chair the party's general election campaign.
And we are saying the Conservatives are the largest party.
Famously disputing the exit poll's prediction of a dire result.
If this exit poll is right, Andrew, I will publicly eat my hat on your program.
This
Andrew,
is a hat.
You are so predictable, aren't you? I just knew you'd do it.
I wanted to get a bigger one.
He inspired respect for his constant ideas and enthusiasm, and his efforts to build the Liberal Democrats into a force in national politics.
Lord Ashdown has died at the age of 77. Let's take you back to our top story now, that tsunami in Indonesia. 220 people dead is our latest death toll, 843 injured, but the death toll, everybody is warning, is expected to rise. And we can speak now to James Masola, who's the Southeast Asia correspondent in Indonesia for the Sydney Morning Herald newspaper. As in Anyer, which is part of the affected area. Thank you very much for being with us, James. You know, you've seen for yourself some of the devastation. How bad is it?
Look, it's frankly, it's fairly awful. What we've seen, cars that have been flipped and thrown into fields, tractors, boats, houses that have been essentially wiped out. The devastation here in Anyer, further down the road in places such as Charita, it's pretty bad.
To what extent did people there have any warning that this tsunami was coming?
So there wasn't a lot of warning. Anak Krakatau, the volcano that erupted, it's an active volcano. It's been erupting intermittently for months now. The locals weren't particularly concerned. Further to that, the volcano itself, when this eruption happened, actually damaged the early warning system that would have essentially, that was the tripwire that would have warned people to say, there's a tsunami coming. Indonesian officials say, that simply didn't go off. So this really took people by surprise.
And as I said, 220 is the death toll at the last count that we've heard. But do you think it will rise? Do you get the sense this is a bigger disaster than that?
Look, sadly, yes, I'm almost certain that the death toll will rise. For example, the number of people missing, it's put at around 40. One of the local medical clinics we visited today, they said there were 36 people missing just from the clinic in that small village. So if that is repeated, as I'm sure it will be, at village after village along the beach road, then we're likely to see many more people either badly injured, missing, and probably sadly dead.
And for the survivors,